Revenge films.
My name is Kevin Johnson. I'm a 28-year-old working full-time at a company. I work in sales, but there was one colleague that I had who was quite the pain. That guy's name was Carl, and he was 1 year older than me, but we entered the company at the same time, and we were direct colleagues. Ever since we entered the company together, Carl had always been really aggressive towards me. Not only would he steal my accomplishments and claim them as his own, he would also suck up to the managers and try to throw me under the bus. Apparently, he also didn't want to lose to me in his personal life as well. And about 3 years ago, there was a time that he purposely slept with a junior colleague in the same company that I had been dating. That ex-girlfriend was named Hillary, and she was 1 year younger than me. She was a little bit weak mentally and often got carried away by other people. I wanted to protect her back then. That's why we started dating. Whenever either of us were feeling down, we were always supporting each other side by side. However, in the second year after we started dating, it was right around that time. Suddenly, out of nowhere, Hillary said to me that she wanted to break up with me. Even though I asked her over and over again for the reason, she wouldn't answer me. However, soon after that, the reason for the breakup became clear. About 1 week after Hillary and I broke up, we were at a company party, and in front of a huge amount of employees that were gathered there, Carl stood up and said, "Hey everybody, I have an announcement to make. I wanted to let you all know that Hillary and I have started dating." He said that out loud to everybody. I was so shocked that I was in no mood to continue drinking that day, and so I quietly walked out and I tried to leave the company party. However, Carl must have seen that because he chased after me, and after he came up next to me, he said quietly so that nobody else could hear, "Actually, 2 weeks ago, Hillary and I stayed in a hotel together, which means that I stole your girlfriend from you and I slept with her. Do you understand that?" He was laughing as he said that. And then from there, he started talking to me without hiding any details about his physical chemistry with Hillary. I was furious and I stormed home. 2 weeks ago, Hillary and I were still in a relationship, and I was overwhelmed with the feeling of betrayal. For a while, I wasn't able to get back on my feet. After Hillary started dating Carl, she started ignoring me and blocking me out. But I could see that day by day she was losing weight and becoming frail. And then, just 3 months after that, she resigned from the company, stating a personal situation at home. Although I was worried about her, I knew that she had a boyfriend now, and I didn't think it was right for me to contact her. So I let it be, and I became a stranger from Hillary after that. But then, after some time had passed, one day, I had a high school reunion. I was drinking alcohol and I was catching up with my friends, and then when I started telling them how I was betrayed by my girlfriend and she cheated on me with my colleague, one of my high school friends who felt sorry for me introduced me to a woman named Jessica, who was 2 years older than us. After everything that happened with Hillary, I had become distrustful and scared of women, and to be honest, I wasn't in the mood to get on board with it. However, he gave me Jessica's contact information, and as we were exchanging messages with each other, I found myself being more and more drawn to her. 1 month after I was introduced to Jessica, the two of us went to dinner for the first time together, and even though I already was interested in her, that was when I immediately fell for her. Even though Jessica was a little bit older than me, there was a part of her that was a little airhead and cute, and she was positive and easy to talk to. This was the first time that I met a woman that I had so much fun being around. Now that I felt that way, I decided to put my all into pursuing Jessica. However, No matter how much I tried to get closer to Jessica, it was difficult to get her to talk about herself or to tell me how she felt. Especially when it came to work. Anytime that I would try to bring it up, she would immediately change the topic. That's why I didn't even know what kind of work she did, and I couldn't get to know much about her. A little while after the two of us started meeting up together more, I decided to muster up the courage and directly ask her what she did for work. But then, after thinking about it for a little while, she replied,
"Actually, I'm a psychiatrist."
It turns out that her father had opened up a psychiatric hospital, and she took after that and became head of the hospital at a young age. Because there were a lot of men that would come after her because they were interested in her money, she told me that that's why she hid her job from me all this time. But then she said,
"The more I got to know you, the more I felt that I would be able to trust you."
And her face turned a little bit red. That was when I decided to ask her out and we formally began dating. 2 years flew by of dating Jessica, and it was about to be my 28th birthday. I was called into my boss's office and I received a notice of a promotion. I felt more confident and I decided that I wanted to get married. I was successfully able to propose to Jessica and get engaged. Both my parents and her parents were really happy, and because they all celebrated us and welcomed our marriage, the preparations for the wedding were quickly put together. But then, one day, I was called into the CEO's office at work, and all of a sudden, he told me that he was going to take away the conversation about my promotion. I was shocked, and when I asked him why, he said that Carl's sales record had suddenly exponentially increased and that Carl would be the one to be promoted first. It was true that recently Carl's sales record had become shockingly successful, so I couldn't complain about that. When I went home and explained that to Jessica, she said,
"That's okay, you can just work harder and try again. You don't need to worry about me."
When she said that to me, I felt saved. So we decided to continue with our marriage. And when I started sending out the wedding invitations to my friends and to my colleagues, just as expected, Carl came biting. Carl tried to dig and pry about Jessica, but I didn't want him to feel some kind of competitiveness about that again, so I tried to brush him off. However, even though I was going to be inviting everybody from my company, I couldn't only exclude Carl from the invitations. So, when I invited him, "Who do you think you are getting married before me? I'm definitely gonna go, so you better watch out." As he said that, he grinned from ear to ear. I had a bad feeling about it, but because our senior colleagues and managers were going to be attending my wedding, I didn't think that he would do anything bad. On the day of the wedding, when the ceremony began, the entire venue was filled with a feeling of happiness. Jessica did seem a little nervous, but she was smiling happily from start to finish. When I looked at that, I was holding on tight to this happiness. And then it became time for the speeches by the friends. Both friends from the bride and the groom side stood up on stage. But just as the last speech had finished, it was at that moment, suddenly, even though I hadn't asked him for a speech, Carl went up onto the stage, and standing next to him was a shockingly skinny and frail Hillary. And then Carl took the mic in his hand and said, "The groom got my girlfriend pregnant!" And he told this ridiculous lie. And then he continued on. "This is Kevin's ex-girlfriend, and the moment she became pregnant, he threw her away. I couldn't leave her alone, and that's why I reached out my hand to her. Come on, Hillary, tell them too." As he said that, he handed Hillary the mic. What was I going to do if Jessica were to believe a lie like that? That Fear came across my mind. But then suddenly Jessica stood up and she started walking towards the stage and stood in front of Hillary. And then she said to her,
Hey, can you lift your face?
Hillary seemed to be terrified as she looked up at Jessica. But then Hillary looked shocked and said,
Dr. Jessica, what are you doing here?
She exclaimed. But then Jessica said,
You were threatened and you were dragged here, weren't you?
And she took Hillary by the hands and gripped tightly. Hillary said,
I'm not pregnant.
And she started sobbing on the spot. Standing next to her, Carl grabbed the mic and said, Hey, what are you saying? Tell them that he got you pregnant! Hey! And he grabbed Hillary by the shoulder and started shaking her. But then Jessica snapped at him.
Cut it out, you're scaring her.
And Jessica brushed Carl's arm off of Hillary. It turns out that Hillary was a patient at Jessica's psychiatric hospital. And apparently, every single day she was being bullied and threatened, and she was physically harmed so many times that she had become mentally ill. That was when one of my managers from the company stood up and yelled at Carl, Hey, you better explain what's going on right now! That was when Hillary grabbed the mic and, with a shaking hand, she started speaking.
I'm being threatened by this man, and in order to raise his sales record, he's giving me money to give to the customers, and I'm paying it to them.
She exposed it all. In order to stop me from getting promoted before him, Carl was using money to buy clients. When he heard Hillary exposing everything, Carl became furious, and he grabbed Hillary by the neck and raised a fist. But then Jessica was standing right there, and then in a calm yet cold tone, she said to him,
I'm going to sue you, so you'd better be ready.
When Carl heard that, Sue me? Excuse me? What makes you think you can do that? As he said that, he let go of his grip on Hillary's neck. From there, the staff from the wedding venue came rushing over and they escorted Carl out. And then the police came and they safely escorted Hillary in order to launch an investigation. After that, the wedding ceremony continued on as planned and there were no other issues. Thanks to the witness statement of our managers that had attended my wedding, Carl was reported and fired from the company. As for Hillary, after she was taken in by the police, her parents came to pick her up, and she was able to leave Carl and move back in with her family. She was finally able to be free of him. From there, she hired a lawyer and sued Carl. She was able to collect a settlement fee as well as all of the medical expenses from when she was injured, and they also made him swear to never go near her ever again. Carl lost his job and he was sued for a huge amount of money, and he became self-destructive. I heard through a rumor that he was drowning himself in alcohol. 6 months later, this time, Carl came to Jessica's clinic as a patient. He was suffering from severe alcoholism, and without working, he was drowning himself even more into debt. He had become physically ill, but continued drinking alcohol. Currently, Jessica is treating Carl in this state, but she said that it's probably going to take him a lot more time to be able to return to society. On the other hand, as for me, immediately after the wedding, I was able to get promoted at work, and my salary increased significantly. Even though it's still not as much of an income as what Jessica makes, I am working extremely hard to make sure that I'm not an embarrassing husband. Even though we're both busy, we're supporting each other. And I pray from the bottom of my heart that we can live happily together for the rest of our lives.
How was today's video? If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Stay tuned for more.